This video I'm just going to talk you through the absolute basics of bonds so that you can see how they would work into your portfolio and help you understand what they are and how they actually work. Let's start with what they actually are. Bonds are loans. You are lending money to a company because in order for a company to grow, usually it has to borrow money, and one of the best ways for a company to raise money is to issue bonds to the public or institutional investors. And the company believes that it can earn a rate of return higher than that of the interest rate. So borrowing money from a financial perspective makes a lot of sense to the company because they're going to make far more money than they pay out. It's going to boost their profits. And the interest rate that the bond has to pay is determined by how risky the issuer is. If a very risky company that already has lots of debt tries to issue a bond, it's going to have to pay a lot of interest or people won't buy it. Whereas a company that's not very risky and doesn't have very much debt will issue bonds at a very low interest rate so that they can borrow money a lot cheaper. So the basics of bonds: a company issues a bond and investors buy that bond on the market. Alright? And it's issued at what's called a par value. Usually it's £100. This is the amount that the company intends to pay back in the future. It will pay £100 to buy this bond back. And it pays interest on the par value. Alright? So if you buy it at more or less than par, it affects the calculation, because the company is only paying the interest on the original loan amount. So if you've got a 10% bond and it's £100 of par value, you'll get £10 each year from it. And at the end of the term, often called maturity, the bond is bought back at par. So if it's issued at £100, on the date that the bond matures, the company will give you your £100 back and you get to keep all of the interest. And you've got the primary and the secondary market. The primary market is where you buy it direct from the company. This is when it's newly issued. The secondary market is where investors buy and sell it, and that can be at any price. It can be above par and then your rate of return is lower, or it can be below par and your rate of return is higher. So let's just look at an example bond and put these ideas together and you'll see how things work. So say you bought on the primary market, so you bought it when the company issued it, a bond that's dated 2021, so 8 years from now, and you bought it at £100 and it pays 5%. So the £100 of par value, 5% is the interest rate, so you get £5 per year paid. This, I call it interest, but strictly speaking it's a coupon. And then in 2021, that should be 2021, you would get your £100 back. However, bonds can be bought when they're not at par, as I said, in the secondary market, so you can buy them for more or less than they were issued for. We talk about yield to maturity later, because if you buy it below par and the company buys it back at par, you get a little bit extra, and the effective rate that you're getting is higher, because these can be bought at any price and they're only paying the interest on the par value, usually £100. So if you've got a bond that pays 5% but you pay £120 for it, so you pay £20 more for it, your return each year would work out as 4.7%, but you would lose a little bit when it was bought back. And well, that's the very basics of bonds, and in the next video we're going to look at some of the main risks associated with buying bonds.